About a month ago, Roaming Millennial decided to upload a video entitled The Problem with Vegans that was ostensibly only about bad vegan behavior. Yet Roaming Millennial, RM for short, strayed from her hazy meme thesis by peppering her video with arguments against veganism. After her arguments were refuted by various YouTubers, RM went on to deny that she gave any arguments against veganism. This denial on RM's part will be the first thing that I will address in my video. After that, I will briefly go over her spurious claims concerning empathy. Then, lastly, I will spend the rest of my time addressing her support of cannibalism. Unsurprisingly, RM raises many more objectionable points than the ones I'm addressing here, but my hard drive cannot handle a response video that size.
Hold on, I think the way this conversation can continue to be productive is if we actually talk about the ethics rather than talking about the ethics.
Yes, thank you.
If you guys want to do that now, how about do that?
Well, I would just like to clarify in this that people are saying in my video, and I'm getting attacked for this, that I was trying to debunk the ethical stance of veganism, which I was not. How was I doing that?
You absolutely were. You argued that I'm trying to find the exact quote. 7 minutes, 59 seconds into your video, but for me, probably the biggest reason I'm not vegan is that I don't believe animals are intelligent or sentient enough for it to be akin to murder to eat them.
Right.
Yeah, you don't think that's suggesting that you are trying to refute the ideology that it's wrong to cause the suffering and death of sentient beings?
I'm not trying to refute anything. I'm explaining why I'm not vegan, and I knew that was an issue that would come up.
That's
why
a
are
refutation.
You vegan?
Yeah, that's exactly the same thing as trying to refute the ideological principles of veganism. You're trying to justify your point of view.
But for me, probably the biggest reason why I am not vegan is that I don't believe that animals are intelligent or sentient enough for it to be akin to murder to eat them. And it is just a scientific fact that animals do not have the same brain functions and brain capacities as we do. And so it can be really frustrating, or at least I find it frustrating, when you're trying to have a conversation with a vegan about the value of human life versus animal life, and they refuse to see the difference between the two.
Now, if she truly believes that she did not once argue against veganism, then this is not a good sign of the quality of thought behind her original video, as this implies that it involved little reflection. So little that, at the time, she did not see her arguments as being arguments. Even in retrospect, RM could not see that she gave arguments against veganism. And because she does not see that she gave any arguments, she can't even begin to see the flaws in her own reasoning. Denying that one gave any arguments after they've been dismantled does not absolve one of giving bad arguments. Of course, while I'm giving her the benefit of the doubt, it's possible that she's being dishonest about her ignorance. Even though she was not aware of her own arguments, plenty of YouTubers, as I said earlier, took notice and refuted them. One YouTuber being Vegan Gains, who she later debated on the topic. Spoiler, it didn't go well for her.
So I would like to address that. And I think, where a lot of vegans are saying like, oh, but you attacked vegan stance on sentience. I didn't attack vegan stance on sentience. I said that I thought you could make an argument for it, but I had an issue with people who were like saying that, all life is equal. And, that's not to say that all life is
you're misrepresenting what you actually said in your own video. What you said was you don't find anything wrong with killing and eating a chicken or a fish. You do have a problem. You said that you can bring up the point that pigs are as if not more intelligent than dogs, and you can make a case there for not harming like pigs. So you're misrepresenting what you said. You weren't trying to say that we have to acknowledge sentience hierarchies. You said that we should create a sort of baseline for dog intelligence, and there's an argument for any animal that's as intelligent as a dog to have a right to life.
I never said that. I never said that. You're trying to argue against not what I've actually said.
So even though I really don't feel at all guilty about eating chickens or eating fish, I do think that perhaps there might be an argument against eating pigs. Pigs are extremely intelligent, and some studies show them to be as smart as or even smarter than dogs. So I think there we can really have this deep conversation about the moral implications and what exactly it would mean to end this animal's life in order to eat it.
We also have a sense of being able to picture ourselves in another person's situation, the ability to empathize, and that has to do with the fact that we are able to look at only chimpanzees, not all animals can empathize.
Animals can empathize.
No, they cannot. Not all animals. Cows cannot empathize.
They absolutely can.
They cannot.
Yes,
that's not what science says.
And
not
so,
all animals can empathize. I'm not saying
not
none
all,
can, but not all of them.
cows absolutely can.
How
They
do
mourn
cows
each other's
empathize?
deaths. They mourn each other's deaths. They love for their own children.
Love
that's-
and mourning is not empathizing. When you
Yes, that
empathize, no, when you empathize with someone, you're picturing yourselves in their shoes. You are making a hypothetical or like an imaginary situation for yourself and wondering, wow, what if that was, right? Because that's what empathy is. And to be able to do that requires a higher level of reasoning than cows are capable of. It is found in some animals.
So therefore, it's
cows
okay
are
to
not
stab
one
a
of
cow to death.
Not only is it increasingly difficult to argue that elephants, cows, and pigs, to name a few, don't have empathy, there's also the interesting and further damning counter to RM's outdated views when considering rats and mice. And sadly, rats and mice are explicitly excluded from even the slight protection offered by the Animal Welfare Act.
So she did a second experiment to give these rats a moral dilemma.
What we did was we put 2 restrainers in the arena, and in one restrainer was the cage mate, and in the other restrainer was 5 chocolate chips. And these are rats that were eating, on average, 7 chocolate chips in a sitting. So 5 chocolate chips, no problem.
What will the free rat do? Will he hog all the chocolate to himself? Free the friend?
So in theory, we've given free rat a choice.
That's right.
He can either let his pal out of the tube or go get a nice tasty snack. Checking out his pal. Oh, come on! He let the guy out first. Incredible. And whoever gets there first is gonna gobble it all up.
Will they, or will they share?
They're not smart enough to share their rats.
They're nice, they share. So on average, the free guy only eats 3.5 chocolates. There's 5 chocolates, so he's leaving 1.5 chocolates.
At this point, I want to focus on a moment in the debate where RM bites the bullet and makes one of my prior video's points. This moment being when she addressed the argument for marginal cases and said it would be permissible to slaughter and consume some cognitively impaired humans. Well, if they don't make her sick. That's nice, I guess?
And it's my question, so let me just clarify here. Look, just Blair, you summed it up as one specific difference. It can be a set of differences, just to be clear. But we should still go them one by one and look at them. I mean, you're saying emotional range. So let's say that a human has their emotional range reduced to that of a cow. Is it okay to stab them to death needlessly for food? If not, that's a double standard.
No, it's not, because again, we're looking at things as a
Okay,
whole. The reason why we don't eat the human species and the reason why we value human life as more important than any other animal life is because of all these things that make up our consciousness. All of these things that make up our brain capacity.
That's no different than saying it's just because of the reason we value whites more than blacks is just because of all of these things that make us different. It's like, no, you got to spell them out. Whoa, listen, you have to spell them out specifically.
I did spell them out specifically.
Okay,
No, you didn't.
Whoa, let's go them one by one. So the first that you talked about was what? Range. First you said intelligence, then you said range of emotion.
Mhm.
So let's just look at both of those. Human, reduced in intelligence and range of emotion to that of a cow. Is it okay to stab them to death needlessly?
No, and the thing is that
So what's
just
the
because
next
a human,
difference? Just keep stacking them on, and we'll just see when you find one that doesn't create a double standard.
okay, that's also fine. But something else we need to understand is that, when we talk about like, why is it okay to stab a cow? I'm not saying, and I don't think Ranting Monkey is saying this either, that it is okay to just go around stabbing cows. Like when we're talking about meat, hang on, sorry. Right. for food, and that
let's
is
add that's a difference too. So you're stabbing the human for food.
Right, but like I said, we shouldn't eat humans not just for ethical reasons. So cannibalism is something that
No, if it were healthy.
Yeah, so let's say it's healthy. Let's say they have
But if it were
intelligence
healthy
and emotional, smaller emotional range, less intelligence, and it's healthy. Is it okay to stab a human to death needlessly for food?
If it were healthy, if this magical person
You're
who
really
does not
gonna say
exist, that is here, you're creating hypotheticals.
You haven't even proven that meat is healthy.
To understand the argument for marginal cases, we can apply it to a belief famously defended by Immanuel Kant. This belief being that humans are ends in themselves, whereas non-human animals are mere means. In his book, Defending Animal Rights, philosopher Tom Regan poses the argument for marginal cases to Kant's position in the following. All humans, Kant implies, exist as ends in themselves. To restrict this supreme moral value to humans only among terrestrial creatures is not arbitrary, Kant believes, because unlike the other animals, humans are unique in being rational and autonomous. However, not all humans are rational and autonomous. Humans who are mentally enfeebled and deranged, for example, lack these capacities. Are these humans, nevertheless, ends in themselves? If Kant's answer is affirmative, then the presence of rationality and autonomy does not ground this supreme moral value. If Kant's answer is negative, then these marginal human beings do not exist as ends in themselves, in which case it would seem that these humans, no less than other animals, may be treated as mere means. Because presumably Kant would have seen this latter consequence to be morally grotesque, it seems fair to assume that he would have wanted to avoid it. But he could do so, it seems, only by accepting the view that individuals who are neither rational nor autonomous nevertheless exist as ends in themselves, a view that undermines his confident assertion that non-human animals, deficient in reason and autonomy as he claims they are, exist merely as means to an end, the end being man. RM, when faced with the possibility of encountering a sufficiently mentally enfeebled human, chooses the high road and opts for the morally grotesque conclusion. According to her, anything or anyone below the intelligence of a dog is free game to be forcefully bred, stuck in confined quarters that harbor disease and injury, and only allowed to see the light of day when they are dragged to a slaughterhouse. Yes, that includes humans. However, she adds the caveat that people should eat less meat than they do now. I'm assuming she would equally apply this to human meat. Nice. In order to make sense of the cannibalism she finds herself defending, RM tries to brush off a thought experiment because it involves a hypothetical. Not only has RM come to endorse cannibalism through sloppy reasoning, she's also defended it with sloppy reasoning.
Who, if you ask me, is a corrupt, globalist warmonger.
That's a nasty taste coming up in my mouth. I'm tasting those globalists.
Those faced with thought experiments that lead them to uncomfortable conclusions cannot escape the implications of their theories by dismissing hypotheticals altogether. Commonly, this is a disastrous move made by those who have little exposure to thought experiments and philosophy in general. This is disastrous for at least two reasons. The first reason is that it fails to understand the purpose of thought experiments. The second is that, at a heavy cost, it dismisses more than just the thought experiments that threaten one's moral beliefs. For the first, thought experiments are not meant to be carried out or subsumed by mundane observations or by experiments that could easily be done empirically. To critique thought experiments for not engaging with more tangible matters would require one to adopt a crude epistemic theory and to ignore the actual uses of thought experiments. On the various uses of thought experiments, the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy gives the following examples. Quote, "Some thought experiments fulfill a specific function within a theory. Others are executed because it is impossible to run the experimental scenario in the real world. Sometimes thought experiments help to illustrate and clarify very abstract states of affairs, thereby accelerating the process of understanding. Again, others serve as examples in conceptual analysis. Most attention is received by those that are taken to provide evidence in favor or against a theory, putting them on a par with real-world experiments, end quote. The numerous uses of thought experiments bleeds into the second reason as to why RM errs. Clearly, thought experiments have application beyond RM's endorsement of cannibalism. Even if RM mistakenly looks at the thought experiments of moral philosophy with suspicion, she should still be aware that her dismissal of thought experiments also excludes their use in economics, history, mathematics, philosophy, and the sciences, especially physics. The ubiquity and importance of thought experiments cannot be stressed enough. To dismiss thought experiments would be to dismiss an important tool of thought used for important issues. If one takes thought experiments to be fine in any field but moral philosophy, then one would need some strong reason as to why this is the case. While it has its own set of challenges, it too utilizes thought experiments for conceptual clarity, to test competing theories, and to understand intuitions, among other things. And as RM discovered, they can also be utilized to expose weaknesses in her moral beliefs. Finally, to end this video with a thought experiment, if Roaming Millennial either became cognitively impaired to the point of having the intelligence of a chicken, or alternatively had the intelligence of a chicken since birth, would it be permissible to kill and eat her? The killing could even take the form of the oxymoron that is humane slaughter. For moral reasons, I believe most people in either case would say no. I believe Roaming Millennial would contradict her initial position and come to the same conclusion, but it would likely be derived from egoist concerns as opposed to sound ethical reasoning.
The fourth problem I have with vegans is that a lot of you don't seem to get sentience or intelligence hierarchies. I don't believe that animals are intelligent or sentient enough for it to be akin to murder to eat them. And it is just a scientific fact that animals do not have the same brain functions and brain capacities as we do. And so it can be really frustrating, or at least I find it frustrating, when you're trying to have a conversation with a vegan about the value of human life versus animal life, and they refuse to see the difference between the two. And the thing is, I think you can make an argument against eating meat without conflating animal life with human life. We can still have a conversation about why it might not be okay to eat animals, but trying to have a discussion about the morality of eating meat with someone who believes that animal lives are equal to human lives is almost like trying to have a discussion about the solar system with someone who believes the earth is flat. Like, you just can't progress further than that.
I think you can make an argument for eating meat by understanding the opposition's arguments and not begging the question as to whether an intelligence hierarchy entails the moral worth or status of sentient beings. We can still have a conversation about why it might be okay to eat animals, but trying to have a discussion about the morality of eating meat with someone who begs the question and doesn't understand elementary moral philosophy is almost like trying to have a discussion about animal ethics with Roaming Millennial. You just can't progress further with people like that.
And yet we still have headlines like this and this by feminist sources trying to discourage people, and particularly women, from getting married. And not only are some feminist advocates outright trying to discourage marriage, but others are also trying to instill behaviors into women that make them so hostile and so selfish that no man would want to marry them anyway.
You're on TV on MSNBC, your own channel, saying the family's old, we've got to get rid of it. You're in the cult, bro. You're the threat to America. You are who we're at war with, you traitorous little rat.